She was about to turn and make her way inside when a porter in an emerald green uniform approached her under the entrance arch. He greeted her in French, asked if she needed help, then took her suitcase and led her across the terrace towards the lobby. It was strange to be a guest in his eyes when she'd worked here once as a waitress. Trailing the porter, Kit passed through the tables dotted around the terrace and climbed the steps to the hotel's entrance. Ivy was thick, and on either side of the front door stood a stone urn brimming with red geraniums. Under her feet, the hotel crest had been carved into the large flagstones by hands long since dead and forgotten. She hesitated to go in and stood on the 3 fleurs-de-lis in the crest to take a quick glance to her left. The headland, called the Roc des Charvines, was silent and imposing. A tree-covered mass of rock and cliff, over which 2 hawks were circling slowly. Memory rising, unbidden. A sheer drop from a great height into the lake. A secret that could never be told. She stopped the tremor of unwanted emotion before it could seize her, forcing it down, packing it in tightly. Kit took a step forward into the building, crossing the threshold once more. Chapter 2. The hotel lobby was built around an ancient cloister, the colonnade blanketed in a crimson creeper. Glimpses of faded stonework visible between the leaves. An old well stood in the centre. It had been in use in the days when the hotel was an abbey and local villagers traipsed through to fill their buckets. The building had sat on the edge of the lake for 1,000 years. Centuries of history in the walls and the stones. The pattering of ghostly feet sometimes heard on a quiet night. The monks on their way to Vespers. At the desk, the receptionist was a stranger to Kit. "Bonjour, madame. How may I help you?" she said. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, and she wore a bright shade of coral lipstick that would not have been allowed in the days when Corinne had maintained standards within these walls, faithful to the old ways. Kit gave her name to check in. The receptionist's French manicured fingers clattering across the keyboard as she typed Kit's reservation details. Kit leaned her arm on the desk and pretended to peruse one of the many tourist guides to the area stacked in front of her. Watchful for anyone she knew among the other faces moving through the lobby. She could still see them hurrying past. The old guard, her former colleagues. Bernard noisily charming one of the guests, while Corinne's keen eye spotted a crooked apron on one of the waitresses scuttling by, usually Aline. But there was no sign of them now. No familiar faces popping up. Probably gone. Figures from an era that was over and done. "Alors, here we are. You're all checked in." The receptionist smiled, reaching behind to the wooden cubbyholes where the large brass room keys were still kept. She selected number 13 and laid it on the desk in front of Kit. A red tassel hung from the keychain. "Breakfast is between 7 and 9 out on the terrace," she said. "There's a generous buffet, so I advise you to come hungry and, if you can, take one of the tables near the lakefront, for the view." Kit thanked her, but she did not need to be told. The breakfast shift had been the anchor of her summer here, the dawn of every day. "May I ask you a question?" she said, returning the guide to the stack on the desk. "Do you happen to have a contact name for the person who made the reservation? I'd like to thank them personally for arranging the room." "No?" The reply came too quickly, followed by a heavy pause, the coral lips briefly drooping at the edges. Kit, who had been well coached by her father, perceived.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.